Hey guys, I'm live today and welcome to another Friday night pajama party. As you guys know, we do this every Friday night and I absolutely love it. I love hanging out with you guys and getting to know you guys a little better. So this is usually one live chat that I want more participation from you guys, and today's topic is a really interesting one. I mentioned it in my previous live stream and you guys said this would be a really interesting topic to do. So today we're talking about sort of life blueprint and how do you look at your life in decades, and you don't have to split it up in the same decade format that I do, but it's just easier to think of it that way. And I think we all seem to think that way, like my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, right? We think that way. So I always, like with any goals, always advise to start with the big end goal in mind. And if you've been following me for any number of time, then you know that I typically say you start with your end. And I know that sounds kind of morbid, but that's how I like to do it. I have like a vision of how I want my children to remember me, what my legacy should be, how I want my family and my loved one, my grandchildren, all of those wonderful people that are in my life or will be in my life, how they should remember me. And that gives me a clear roadmap and a blueprint of how I should be living and leading my life. And then from there you go backwards and you break it down basically in larger chunks and then smaller chunks and then smaller chunks until you arrive so that you have a purpose and a dedication for each day. And I'm not saying you're running around like a crazy person every single day, but you're generally moving in the right direction. So you don't wake up one day at 99 and say, oh my God, my life just passed me by. I don't know what happened. So hopefully we all want to have some sort of a plan for our life. Hi everyone. Universal Journey, Gidra, Janan, I miss you too. Archana, Gayatri, and Stephanie, welcome guys. So I want feedback on this. I've been through the decades and I'm in my mid-30s, so that's all I have experience with right now. But I have a sort of plan of how I would like to spend my 40s, my 50s, all the way to my 90s. And so let's run through it. Ideally, I'm not saying this is what happened in my 20s, but if I was to give somebody in their 20s their roadmap, and I do this all the time, I'm a life coach, so I talk to a lot of people in different decades, and typically what I say to my younger clients, and this is people, my youngest client is actually 17 currently, and so anywhere from 17 to the 25-year-old range, when they call and they're asking for advice and they want to set up a plan, my number one tip for them is that if you can get through your 20s without getting into debt, and if you're already in debt, if you can possibly get yourself out of that, that is the best strategy because you're already kind of winning. So that's just kind of like, I'm going to touch on the financial and the other side of, all the other life goals as well. But that is my number one tip for them because I think that impacts all of your future decisions, because if you leave your 20s in debt, then I think you're leading a life of fear when you're in your 30s and 40s, because it's like you're always living in the past. You're always having to undo that damage. So my number one advice for my people in your 20s, if you can somehow manage to either stay out of debt or get out of debt, if you are already ahead of the curve. So that would be my tip number one. In my 20s, or in your 20s, I think it's really a time of finding yourself. It's a time of knowing your likes, knowing your dislikes, and you're not just going to wake up one day knowing them. You're going to have to make a lot of mistakes to learn them. And this is really a time on working on yourself. But I think a lot of people make the mistake of, I guess, putting themselves on hold and trying to form relationships too quickly. They're on this fast track to either be in a relationship or get married or have children, and they miss that key step of really getting to know themselves and spending that time in developing the relationship with yourself. And if you don't have that relationship with yourself, you will always be feeling like something's missing or you're trying to find something later on in life. I have a lot of clients that are even older now, and I'm talking their kids are grown in their 50s and 60s, and they didn't take the time early on to discover what they like, what they don't like, who they are, what they wanted in life, what their passions were, what their hobbies were. And they're really struggling with that now because now they have a lot of other information that's clouding their mind. Like, well, I enjoy doing this with my husband. Like, no, what do you enjoy? Like, who are you? What do you enjoy doing? And so, especially think of it, if you're a mom, like everything that you do right now, if you're raising young children, revolves pretty much around your kids. So it's really hard to step aside from that and figure that out if you haven't done that before you had kids. So I advise my clients and you guys, my subscribers in your 20s, take the time to have that relationship with yourself. I promise you, there will be plenty of time later on to have a relationship with other people. And guess what? Having a good relationship with yourself actually helps you in developing better relationships with other people. This could be your spouse, your parents, your siblings, friends, co-workers, bosses, all of the people that you will be encountering in your life. If you don't take that time to learn yourself in your 20s, by making the mistakes and spending that time with yourself and learning and growing and even being by yourself a little bit, you're going to regret that later, because it's very hard to catch up on that later while you have everything else going on. You might be a spouse, you may be paying off debt, you might have children, and you're thinking, I don't have time for this. I'm just going and surviving right now. So let me see what you guys are saying, and then I will keep going. Hi, Diva Fitness. Let's see. Universal Journey said, Mina, that's great. At least your kids won't be stereotyping you like how I stereotyped my great-great-grandfather because they were Agwans and we know how Agwans are. Let's see. Stephanie said, I agree. I'm 22. I got out of debt and I feel so much free. My main focus for my 20s is to get to know myself better, take care of myself in all aspects, and learn new things. Yes, make a lot of mistakes, learn new things. This is the time where it's okay to make a lot of mistakes. Honestly, I will say, let me rephrase that. I think you can make mistakes and bounce back at any point. I don't care if you're 80, you can do it. But the easiest time to do it and where you can actually learn a lot without really beating yourself up is your 20s. I made a whole lot of mistakes in my 20s and they helped me become smarter and really resilient in my 30s. So I think right now, don't rush into, I think the 20s is this time where we all feel like we have to grow up. So we're like on this race, like to buy a house, to get married, to have children. And all of those things are wonderful, but there's plenty of time in doing that. Even if you can even wait until your later 20s to spend that time with yourself. You're not going to have it later, not for a long time, until your children are all grown maybe. And then you may be helping with grandchildren, nursing your kids out of divorce. You know how life goes, right? So spend that time with yourself when you can in your 20s and get to know who you are, what you enjoy, what are your tolerances, what things you absolutely can't stand. Make those mistakes and do that in your 20s. Usha said, hi Mina D, finally caught you live. It's 6:30 a.m. in India. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome. I've been enjoying all of your wonderful comments. So thank you so much for stopping into the live chat. Hi Famina. Nazia said, love the second tip. When I came here in the US 2 years ago, everyone, including my husband, wanted to have a baby, but I said no. I needed to figure out how things work for me here. Absolutely. I think that you're really smart in doing that. So when my mom immigrated into the US, she was already expecting me. She was already pregnant. And so when she came here, I think I was born like 2 months later. So she had to like learn everything while she had a newborn baby, and she had to make friends, and she didn't know anybody here. My dad had some family, but you know, it was a struggle for her. And it wasn't until like 3, 4, 5 years in that she really was able to get a handle, learn how to drive, and you know, like step outside and learn this new country that she was living in now. So I'm glad that you're doing that. Amrike, hi, how are you? She said, I became a mother at 19 and I could not agree more with all you said. I completely understand this. I had my first child at 23 and boy, I made so many mistakes with him because I was a child myself in some ways, right? I mean, 23 is an adult, but you haven't figured out a lot of stuff at that age. Even though you think you have, you haven't. And my sister had her first child at 17, and I mean, I feel like there's this like always catching up period because you miss out on so much. And we would not trade our babies for anything, of course, but if we could do it all over again for the betterment of our children, we would have waited and made better decisions, because in the long run that would have been better for them as well. So if you can wait and get to know yourself and get yourself in order, you know, get all your little ducks in the row, that's the best way to do it. Hi, Caitlin. Awesome. So Ritu, hi. So let's move in. Let's see if I missed anything. Okay. Also in your 20s, as you move into your late 30s, ideally you want to have a good relationship with yourself. You want to know your style. What are the type of clothes that you like to wear? What are the type of cosmetics and colors that really enhance your beauty? What are the things that make you feel fabulous? And you tend to get a lot of compliments on them. I have a whole video on finding your style, but generally how I find my style is, how I know it was me, is because I felt like I could take over the world. Now, if you think about it, it's just clothes, right? But you just feel different when you put on certain clothes versus other clothes. So that's usually my sign that that's my style. That's me. If I feel like I put something on and it's like a Superwoman cape, that's me. That's my style. And bonus, if I get compliments on it, great. But if not, I typically go for things that I feel great in, because sometimes I get a lot of compliments on things that other people want me to wear, but generally I don't feel confident in. So to me, that's not worth it. So that's another thing. Also, by your late 20s, you want to have some sort of a life plan. So you don't have to achieve everything, but you should know, okay, maybe you want to buy a house in your 30s. Maybe you already bought a house. You should have a plan on how you're going to pay off that house. Or maybe you have some career goals. Maybe you have an exit strategy from your career into a business. Maybe you have a educational strategy. But you should not be winging it by this point. You should have some sort of a plan and a track so that you don't wake up one day again and think, what happened? Where did my life go? I love it when people in their 20s, so many of my friends that I've made here on YouTube, my friend Kelly from Freedom in a Budget, she's 28, she's just about to get married, and she just paid off her debt, I believe. Yes, a few months ago she paid off her debt. When she's texting me and she's telling me, yeah, I'm going to do this in 2 months, and next year we're planning on doing this, or in 2 years, I'm like, I wish I was thinking all of those things at your age. I love it when young people have a plan and they're moving towards it and they're working hard, and they may be making some sacrifices, but they're also enjoying their life and having a system and a plan so that they will be successful in life. I absolutely love it. Nothing makes me happier. So if you can set yourself up, think about it, and not just somebody else's plan for you. Not, my mom wants me to go to medical school. You know, if you're Indian, you know how that is, right? Or, you know, my dad wants me to do this, or my mom wants me to get married. No, what's your plan? If you did not have to think about those things, what would you like to do? If, you know, family wasn't a barrier or money wasn't a barrier, think about those things and see if you can make those a reality. What can you do? How can you set up your life so that you're on the right path to happiness? Because ultimately, you know, you want to live a happy, joyful life, right? All of the stuff we're talking about, pretty much, I'm assuming that your underlying goal in life is to be happy. And that's where I've created my life. I want to live a good life. And you can arrive at that scenario taking very different paths, but you need to know what that path is going to be for you. In your 30s, you want to, you know, hopefully by this time you've given it some thought about family. Maybe you're getting married, maybe you're already married, maybe you have planned for children. As you approach your 30s, you should have some sort of a retirement plan. I'm not saying you have to go out and retire in your 30s, no. But when would you like to retire? If you're aiming for 65, okay, you figure out how much are you earning, how much do you need to be investing so that you can comfortably retire at 65. If you want to retire earlier, then you have different goals. You have to save different amounts of money. We've done tons of videos on that. this should be something that you have thought out and you've automated it so that it's happening. Maybe the 30s is your time where you can work hard and pay off your mortgage, become debt free, that sort of thing. You want to have healthy routines for yourself. Hopefully by this time you have some sort of a plan for how you eat and how you move and how you enjoy your community and your relationships, how you spend time in nature. You guys know this has been a major one for me. I did a huge overhaul of my diet, my lifestyle. 30s is where you start preserving your health like crazy. All of the junk food mistakes that you made in your 20s, you can't get away with it so much in your 30s, and you need to start thinking long-term health, not I'll just worry about it when I have a heart attack. We're thinking at this point, how can I prevent that heart attack? How can I prevent that weight gain? How can this is another one. I forgot to mention this in the 20s, but you hopefully in your 20s, you should have figured out what is your comfortable ideal weight. What weight do you feel really energetic, really healthy, you feel fabulous in your clothes, and it's a good number for you. And typically you want to stick around that number as you go into your 90s. Yes, you heard me. Yes, you want to be able to. I think we've gotten so used to thinking that we're just going to get fat as we get older and we're supposed to gain weight that we've accepted it. But no, even after we have children, we can bounce back and we stand around that ideal weight. Be realistic. I'm not saying choose an unrealistic number. Choose one that, again, gives you energy and you feel great with. Let's see. Nazia said, even the food, it took me a long time to figure out what I like to eat and what's best working for me. Yes, and sometimes, Nazia, what you like to eat, your body, it doesn't like you back, right? So I've learned all of those things the hard way too, that what do I like to eat that my body also likes and that food loves me too. So that takes a lot of trial and error, but this is really the time, I would say, end of 20s, early 30s, to really figure out nutrition for yourself. Figure out a plan for how you're going to feed yourself, how you're going to feed your family. That's intentional. Have fun with it. Have those, fun meals, but really have a plan, because if we're just going along with what everybody else is doing, obviously that doesn't turn out good for everybody. So yes, this is the decade, the 30s, for me at least. Obviously, I'm just sharing like my perspective on everything, obviously. The 30s has been really a time for developing really healthy routines, having rituals, slowing down. I felt like I was always on a race in my 20s. I was trying to do so much. I did so much. That 30s, I've had to really slow down and almost take a deep breath and say, "Ooh, girl, you did a lot in your 20s. You're here now. Like, let's slow it down and let's enjoy it." So if that makes sense to you guys, because 20s was go, go, go. And so I've really slowed it down in my 30s and really learned to cherish everything. And I've also learned that there's always going to be more things to want. There's always going to be more goals. But what I have now is something that I wanted in the past. So when do I get to slow down and enjoy it for a minute? So this was a decade for me to really bulletproof myself, get to a point where other people's comments, other people's insecurities, other people's wants for how I should behave, other people's needs for what they need from me do not really impact how I live my life. Obviously, I want to be there for my family and friends, but I don't want to be the type of person that's just being pushed around all the time without a plan. So I need a plan and a structure for myself, and then work around, so that I can provide for everybody else, but I'm taken care of as well. This was a big one. Being able to read people, this was a big one. In the 20s, I said this a lot, and probably why I attracted is as well. My mom and I both used to say, we're not good at judging people. We're not good at judging people. And we said it so much that it became our reality, and we almost found ways to find people that we judged incorrectly, if that makes sense. And I've been really able to turn that around in my life. I feel like I'm able to read people's insecurities, maybe because I also have I have access to a lot of people here on my channel that I talk to on a daily basis. And so I'm able to read between the lines. Also, communication is my it's my degree, it's my passion, and I've really studied it so I can read nonverbal communication and learn all of that. But I think even if you're not passionate about this is a human need. So it's important to learn how to communicate effectively, how to be able to say no, how to learn when people are not sincere with you, how to know when your friends aren't really your friends, how to know when even your best friend may be saying certain things out of their own insecurities, how not to let those things bother you, how to deal with sensitive relationships like in-laws or those relationships where they're wonderful, but you have to be a little extra careful what you say, what you don't say. You need to be able to let things bounce off of you, not make a big deal, be able to tolerate other people and their differences and the things they say. I think all of this was so important to me in my 30s. A lot of this I find is self-taught. I don't feel like my childhood really prepared me for this. So I had to teach it for myself, learn it for myself so that I can teach it to my children. This is very important to me. How to stand up to people when they want you to do certain things that you don't want to do, or just toxic relationships, how to get rid of them, how to decide when what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Now, if you haven't spent that time in your 20s doing that, it's going to be hard in your 30s, because if you're trying to juggle a career and a family and children, and you've got some toxic person coming at you, you don't know how to deal with those things many times. So that's why I'm saying that it's so important that you learn these things about yourself. In your 30s, at this point, babe, you've got to know what you really want, because you can make a lot more mistakes in your 20s and bounce back. I'm going to say again, you can pretty much do it at any decade, but it's going to be harder to catch up. Every mistake stings a little bit more in your 30s because it's harder to catch up, especially if you have children. Use your time wisely at this point. This was a really important one for me as well. So let's see what you guys are saying, and then I will move into the 40s. Rudra said, I'll be watching while driving in my Bluetooth car. Thanks for all you do, Mina. I love watching you. I have watched your other videos all the time. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. Gidra said, at 30s only we will realize what we missed, but before too late you can find your passion. Absolutely, you can find your passion at any age. I shared an article in my private Facebook group about this woman. She's in her 90s and living a completely passionate life. She started a business at 50. She did, all these wonderful things at 60s, 70s, 80s, and she's still going strong. So you can do all of that at any time. This video is not meant to make anybody feel bad. It's just kind of, I want you guys to start thinking about your life in decades and chunks, and thinking, how can you organize it so that you don't miss out on this time and you're able to have some sort of a structure, basically. Nazia said, I really, really appreciate that bounce back after having your baby. That is so awesome and inspiring. I was so scared of it because I have a genetically healthy body. Even a piece of meat adds up a pound of fat, but now I am confident, all thanks to you. Oh, that is so awesome. Anybody, regardless of what your situation is, if you are determined and if you are focused, I promise you can bounce back. Our bodies are pretty resilient if you give it the right food for your body, and you're moving and you're managing your stress and you're sleeping. I promise you it can be done. I actually know women that have had 4, 5, 6, 7 kids and they bounce back and look fantastic. So anybody can do it. Caitlin said, this is exactly what I'm going through right now. Working hard, being comfortable in myself, and focusing on using time wisely. By the way, my birthday is tomorrow and I'm focusing tonight on my vision board for year 33. Happy birthday, Caitlin. That is awesome. I love that you're doing this on the eve of your birthday. Awesome. Yes. Plan out that year. Have a general plan for your decade. And the 30s is amazing. I feel so much more confident in my 30s than I did in my 20s, because I don't know, you just become a badass in your 30s, because you're not insecure anymore. You're not worried about what other people are thinking. You're not worried about what other people are saying. And I can't wait to be in my 40s, because from what I hear from my girlfriends, it just gets better and better. If you're taking care of yourself and you're investing time in yourself and you're learning and growing, then aging becomes this wonderful, amazing adventure, and you're not afraid of it. You're not dreading it, because you just get better with age. So I love that. Happy birthday. Let's see. So 40s. So this, obviously I'm not in my 40s. So this is kind of like what I'm guessing at how I have planned it for myself. And you will see that it's not as detailed because I'm not sharing from experience anymore. I'm just kind of sharing with how I'm planning on doing mine. Personally, for me in my 40s, I will still be raising my children, but they will be older, right? Because my youngest is 3 years old. So my goal in my 40s will be to transition more into that. Again, I say I'm raising adult, not children, and this is where my relationship with my children will be evolving more into adult relationships, because my oldest two will be adults in my right? My oldest he turns 13 this year. So I think, in the 40s, like he's like a teenager. So this is where I really start transitioning into having more of a grown-up relationship. Like this is a relationship that will last forever, hopefully, and not where I'm babying them or looking at, like, it's not that authority relationship anymore, if that makes sense. Also, I've set myself up right so that I can, one thing that I always feared was I did not want to be the type of aging parent that my children really worried about, because I've seen this with people where their parents have completely put their lives on hold just to raise the children. They don't have friends, they don't have interests, they don't leave the house, and their children are trying to have their own life, but they're worried about their parents' well-being. So even though my children are still young, I still have a toddler at home with me while my other two go to school. It was really important to me to cultivate something for myself so that I can build on it as they get older. And personally for me, it's my coaching business, it's my YouTube channel, and my personal development stuff that I do for my own life, growth and stuff. So in my 40s, what I'm planning on doing is, as Alina goes to school and she's not going to need me so much during the day, I hope to kind of build on that. So my goals are more time for personal interests, courses. I want to make courses for you guys. I want to teach. I want to have a more aggressive business plan, something I enjoy, of course, but I can invest more time in it. I want to volunteer. So as children, my mom used to take us to like senior nursing homes, and we used to play bingo over there a lot with elderly people, and I used to love it. Like I used to wait until we got to do that, and that's been on the back of my mind to try to do that more now, but for some reason I haven't been able to really make the time for that. So my goal is that as I move into the next decade, hopefully I'll have more time to spend time doing that, and traveling more. We love to travel right now with our children, but as they get older, we have bigger, better travel plans, because obviously as they get older, it gets a little bit easier to do more like adventurous travel, like safaris and things like that, and longer travel as well. So that's why it was important to me to cultivate this YouTube channel and have this thing develop. Right now I only invest as much time as I can, but my goal is to, when my children are all in school, that I can invest more time into that. In my 50s, obviously at this point my kids are fully grown. I have more couple time with my husband. This is the time where maybe him and I can just travel together. Hopefully we'll be able to do that with our children as well, but I'm assuming they will have their own families at this time. I want to be able to be there for my grandchildren, but I also want to be a very active person so that my children are not worried about me. I don't want them to stress about my health. I don't want them to stress that mom's bored, she needs us. I want to be an equal active partner in their life, and not somebody that they have to worry about or think about, or I think on some level we all do that with our parents, but I really want to make sure that I am keeping up with them. I'm energetic, I'm active. I want to, at this point, really downsize, because my children will be out of my home in the 50s. I want to downsize so that Irfan and I can travel more. I want to be able to volunteer a lot more aggressively, maybe even internationally, things like that. And my major goal will obviously be to be around for my children. I think at this point I see myself getting really more aggressive with removing toxins from my life, and really right now, you guys know I baby step everything because I have young children. I don't want to overwhelm myself, but hopefully in my 40s and 50s I will be that ultimate vision that I see myself as somebody who's toxin free and really like or all, maybe all organic and all of that. I would have hopefully baby stepped into that. Let me see what you guys are saying, and then we'll move into our 60s. Nazia said, wow, you just said all the plans I have for my 40s. I still didn't put it on a vision board, but it's somewhere in there. And almost the same stories with 20s and 30s. That's awesome. Like this video, guys. Give it a thumbs up if you haven't already. Valerie said, taking care of yourself is a gift you give to your children. This is my inspiration as I'm watching my parents age with a lot of health issues. Yes, Valerie, we've all been there. You know, if you've been a part of my channel, you know my mom's story. And my dad hasn't, you know, he's in his late 60s now, and he has a host of illnesses and stuff. A lot of them, I would have to say, are self-created from years of smoking and just neglecting health and things like that. So I know that these things are preventable, and I want to dive in even deeper into my research of my love of nutrition and be able to figure it out. So I did not make notes for 60s, 70s, and 80s, and 90s. And the reason for that is because my life goal for those are not that much different. So as I go into my 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, my vision for that is, and it's going to be pretty similar. I can't see that far out into the future because I cannot imagine, you know, I don't know what the situation with my children will be. But I know one thing, I want to be as active, as energetic, and as mobile as I possibly can. I want to be doing all the things that I love to do. I want to live a relaxing, passionate, luxurious life, but not luxurious in the way that we typically think. You guys know my definition of luxury is having peace in my life and spend that quality time with my children, volunteer, be a part of my community, travel, take part of new interests. There's a lot of things that I've always wanted to learn how to do: speak different languages, learn different cuisines, maybe learn to paint, different things like that I never got into because just life got in the way. And I want to be able to do that as I age and get older, and I want to take care of myself so that I can do all of those wonderful things. And I've met enough people, read enough articles and inspiring stories of people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s even, that are doing those things later on in life, and they're loving it, and I think it keeps them young, it keeps them excited for life, and that's the kind of person that I want to be. Because like I said, my main goal will be to not be a burden on my family and enjoy every day in any small way possible, and be a lifelong learner. That's something that I teach my children all the time, that should be your goal, but it's definitely mama's goal. I tell them that all the time, that I want to be that 90-year-old person still learning something new, still growing, still changing. And that's just me. That's how I imagine it, because I cannot even imagine being somewhere and thinking, okay, I've learned it all and I've seen it all. There's always more to learn, and there's always more to see. So that's my life plan. And I'm sorry that I did not break down like 60s, 70s, 80s, because that far out I haven't really written it out. But I know that it's not going to, you know, being healthy, being mobile, being active, that's not going to change. And because I've really taken the time to get to know myself, I know that I'm always going to want to learn and evolve and be able to keep up with my children and my grandchildren and whatever else life throws at me. But I'm so excited, guys. I think this is such a fun video. And let me, if you guys are watching this in the replay, leave in the comments how you see your life unfolding. Did you work backwards? Did you start with, you know, what do you want your children to say when you're gone? What's your legacy? And did you work your way backward? I want my grandchildren sitting around thinking, she was so active. She was always learning something new. She traveled the world. She volunteered. She was always laughing. She was positive. And that's how I want to be remembered. So that's it, guys. I hope you guys really enjoyed this live chat, this pajama party today. And thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out. Nazia said, I really enjoyed this live chat. It's so awesome. The community is really the kind of community I look for. Nazia, that's exactly, I craved this community for the longest time in my life. And then I decided, what am I waiting for? Why don't I just create it myself? So I will leave you guys at that. I love you guys so much. I will catch you guys in the next one. Oh, happy 4th of July for those of you guys in the United States. Enjoy your long weekend, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.